Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Megan.
And I'm Sierra. It has been over a year now, I think, since our most recent. If you read this, then you should try reading this video. So we are back with a third one.
Yeah, so in this video, we are going to be sharing 5 or 6 different options of if you've read this book, then you should try reading this book. And so I guess let's just get into it.
Also, this is the first video we're recording in Megan's little reading corner. Let us know if you guys like this area for some of the book videos that we do, since we have kind of like a little set now for some book videos. We also have a bookshelf, but sometimes it's hard with the lighting down there.
It can get tricky down there.
So yeah, just let us know. Anyway, first pairing we have, if you have read 11/22/63 by Stephen King, you should try reading Billy Summers by Stephen King. So you guys have probably heard me absolutely rave about this book. This is like one of my all-time favorite books, probably. I gave it 5 stars. Megan has also read it.
I give it 4.5 stars.
So it is a very hefty, daunting book, about 850 pages.
Yeah.
It's all great though. And so this book follows Jake Epping, who is a high school teacher, doesn't have a lot going on for him in his life at the time. He's recently divorced and just kind of at a standstill with like what he's doing in life and what his purpose is. He goes to this diner usually like every night for dinner, and suddenly the diner owner says like, I need your help with something. And somehow there's a time portal in the diner that then travels back to 1957 or something like that. Diner owner says, Jake, I need you to go back in time and stop the assassination of JFK. And this time portal only goes back to that specific date, which is like 5 years before the JFK assassination. And initially Jake is like, why on earth would I do that? Like, I have a life here. And then the diner owner's like, not really. And Jake is like, true. So then Jake says, okay, I'll do it. And you get to follow like the entire journey of Jake, you know, preparing for how he's going to stop the assassination, but also he has like 5 years of life to live before the assassination, and that book follows the entire journey. And I just thought the journey was like almost better than just like getting to what happens on the assassination day. So Billy Summers, on the other hand, follows Billy Summers. He is actually a hired assassin, so kind of like the complete opposite of Jake Epping wants to stop an assassination versus Billy Summers is hired to assassinate someone. However, I feel like these main characters are very similar because they're both like here for a job and they're trying to like switch things up in their life. He's trying to like, this is his last job, then he wants to be done being an assassin. Jake Epping is trying to like chase something new and like find a purpose in his life. And so I feel like these main characters reminded me a lot of one another. Obviously they're both written by Stephen King, so the writing style is very similar. If you liked the writing style in one, you'll probably like the writing style in the other. Both these books also have like a little bit of a romance subplot, more heavy in 11/22/63 than in Billy Summers, but like it still kind of pops in there if you're interested in that. Stephen King is really good about writing just like plot with vibes and like, I don't know where we're going, but I'm having a good time along for the ride.
Okay, for the next book comparison, if you have read The Bodyguard by Catherine Senner, then you should try reading Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Both of these are contemporary romance, and I feel like both of them are pretty popular right now and have been making their rounds on Book Talk. Okay, so for this book, Hannah is a professional bodyguard, and she works with a company who, you know, hires people for celebrities and anyone who needs a bodyguard. And she gets put on an assignment where there's a famous actor, his name is Jack. He's coming back into town to be with his family because his mom is sick and she's getting treatment. He wants to be around while she's going through that. And he wants a bodyguard because he has like a stalker nearby that like they just want everything to be safe. He doesn't want his family to have to worry about him by saying like, oh, there's a bodyguard around, like that's why she's always following me. And so he proposes the idea of, let's just act like you're my girlfriend and then you're still around me all the time, but then they don't have to know that I have a bodyguard. And so there's a fake dating trope in this, which I love. And then obviously when that happens in books, it's usually because they start to catch feelings for each other. In Practice Makes Perfect, there's also a bodyguard in this, so it's kind of like we're a little on the nose with, you know, similarities between these two. But this is actually the second book in a duology. When in Rome is the first one. You can read them separately if you want to. Annie owns a flower shop. They're in a small town, Rome, Kentucky, and she is kind of in the dating scene trying her best to find the right guy for her. And she just feels like she's really bad at dating and is having no luck with it. Her sister-in-law, who's the main character in the first book, is a famous pop star singer who now lives in town with her brother, and they're married. And so Will is her sister-in-law's bodyguard, and he comes into town because he's assigned to work with her leading up to the wedding in case like press and paparazzi gets a little crazy. Since Will has like a playboy reputation, they get the idea of, okay, Will's gonna help Annie learn how to date better and kind of give her some tips. And then it's not fake dating because like they don't go out and like pose as a couple. It's more so like, oh, like
he's
all,
teaching her how to date.
And so kind of similar in that way, but a little different. I feel like they're similar obviously because they both have bodyguards in them.
Small town.
Lots of family and other characters involved in both of these books as well, because you've got Jack's whole family that you're interacting with, and then you've also got like this entire small town and then people from the first book as well.
Okay, next pairing. This may be considered a little bit of a cop-out, but if you've read any of Ali Hazelwood's books, you know they're very similar. So if you have read The Love Hypothesis, or again, this could be switched out to
just about
any of these, you should try reading Love on the Brain or Love Theoretically. Full disclosure, we have not yet read this one. We just picked it up. But I imagine it's, you know, very similar, and I hear great things. So we'll mostly just talk about these two, but know that that third book is there. So The Love Hypothesis follows Adam Carlson and Alla Smith. Alla Smith is a PhD candidate, and then Adam Carlson is already like a full-blown PhD. So they actually start to fake date because Adam Carlson needs to prove to like his supervisors or whoever that he's planning on like staying in town and having a girlfriend, would show like that he's setting some roots down a little bit. I don't even fully remember why Olive like proposes the idea, but essentially they start to fake date, potentially develop feelings for one another, and then for Love on the Brain, we have like, it's kind of like an enemies to lovers, but like it's not super enemies. They were just like college rivals.
I feel like it was like more so like they didn't communicate their actual like, they didn't have good communication
before. Not always what it is.
So then,
but this one follows B and Levi Ward. They are both working on the same NASA project, and so B is working more like the neuroscience kind of thing, side of things, and then Levi, does he do technology or something? I don't really know what his role in the thing was. But they have to like work together, and B knows that they didn't get along in college, or at least like that was her perception of like them in college, was that he didn't like her. So she's like, how am I supposed to be like a co-lead on this project when this guy won't even talk to me, like we can't communicate. The project starts to get like messed up because they're not communicating, and eventually the more they have to actually work together to solve problems within the project, they kind of are able to talk about things in college and like their actual feelings towards one another. As far as similarities, I would say the guy like falls first, but like you don't really see that. You don't get the guy's POV in any of these, do you?
I don't think so.
And then you get like this oblivious girl who's like, she thinks that the guy genuinely hates her, and it's so obvious that it's like, no, he doesn't hate you, he likes you, but whatever. Overall,
these books
super
are so
quick read.
Like read that in a day. Probably read this in a day too. Like so quick, so fast.
And so easy. Even though there's like some science related topics, Ali Hazelwood doesn't like dive super deep into like the depths of the science where you'd feel lost or anything, or at least I didn't think you did. And it's just like a fun, different setting that I feel like a lot of romance authors are.
I feel like a lot of people tend to like The Love Hypothesis more, but I think I actually liked this one more if my memory serves me correctly, so.
But they're both great. I think we both gave these 4 stars.
Yeah, and then
we anticipate
honorable
this one will be
mention
great.
This one as well. Next book comparison, I'll probably be speaking more to because I am the only one that out of the two of us that has
the
read
only person in the world who has read
the Rosie Project, but I feel like more people have probably read Flowers for Algernon, so if you've read Flowers for Algernon and you enjoyed that book, then you should maybe try reading the Rosie Project. Now, we read Flowers for Algernon in like 11th grade for our English class, but I did actually I surprisingly liked the book. And so I'm going to talk about what the 2 books are about. So in Flowers for Algernon, there is a science experiment. They test a surgery on a mouse. The mouse's name is Algernon, and it makes the mouse smarter. And so then Charlie Gordon is the main character in the book, and he is the first human subject that they decide to do this surgery on. He has a low IQ, and the surgery then makes him smarter.
But since the mouse got the surgery first, they can kind of see, or like it foreshadows what might happen to Charlie as time goes on. So you see like this mouse kind of peak in terms of intelligence and IQ, and then start to dip.
Yeah, and then right after like Charlie gets the surgery, the mouse starts to decline and kind of like revert back to where it was at before. And so Charlie's already had the surgery. He gets smarter. It's interesting because
it's written from his point of view, so it's like first person. So as he gets smarter, the writing kind of increases. And
how his perception of his relationships with other people in the book are changing because of like how he's able to kind of see how people treated him before and then how they're changing now. And then this book follows Don Tillman, who is a professor. He's definitely probably on the spectrum. It talks a little bit about autism on this, but like he's not specifically diagnosed or anything, but just like how he interacts with people and how his brain works is not typical, and how you interact with people. And he's kind of socially awkward. But he has decided that he is going to create something that he calls the Wife Project, and he makes a list of questions that he enlists his professor friend to like help get the questionnaires out to like find his perfect wife, and he's not having a whole lot of luck. Eventually he meets Rosie by introduction of his professor friend, and he's under the impression that like she's only being sent to him because she was a candidate for the wife project. And he very quickly, based on her personality and different things that she does, like I think she smokes, and he's like, she's not a candidate anymore, like, well, that's not gonna work. But then she mentions that she's trying to find her biological father, and that's really why she's there. She has no idea about the wife project at all. And so he's like, well, I guess I'm a genetics professor, like I can probably help you, like see if we can find your biological father. And so in spending more time together, he is starting to be involved in different experiences. She's kind of showing him like different things to do, or like how the real world works, or like how his very typical schedule of like things he likes to do maybe isn't always making him as happy as like, oh, when I'm spending time with her. And he's kind of like having to go through like the dichotomy of like, I think I want this, but when I'm with her or doing different things, I'm actually feeling like happier. And so in ways that they're similar, both of the main characters are neurodivergent, so you're getting a unique perspective that I don't feel like you get in a lot of books. And both of the books you're probably going to be a little uncomfortable. I feel like in Flowers for Algernon, it's more so of like a moral and ethical dilemma of like, should we be doing this? Like, is this surgery ethical? And then in this book, there's definitely just like moments of like social awkwardness that you're like
secondhand embarrassment from reading.
Yeah, but I feel like it kind of speaks to like the character in the book.
Next pairing, if you have read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, I think you should try reading Before You're Strangers by Renee Carlino. So 7 Days in June follows Eva and Shane. They're both authors. They had this whirlwind romance for 7 days in June when they were in high school, to then just like completely separate for whatever reason the reader does not know, and then they reconnect 15 years later as they're both kind of like well-established authors, and reconnect, get to kind of figure out what happened that caused them to part ways when they were younger, and then potentially start the romance anew. And you get past and present timelines, you get dual POVs, and very similarly, you get some.
And I haven't read this yet, so.
And they both take place in New York, primarily. So this one follows Matt and Grace. They start their romance when they're in college. It's not like a whirlwind romance like 7 Days in June. It's like a friends to lovers, like as their freshman year goes on, they start to like fall in love, basically. So it's more of a drawn out timeline. You still get past and present timeline. It's different in this book compared to 7 Days though, because this one's like present, all of the past, and then present again, and then you don't get the past again. Versus this one is like a little bit of the present, a little bit of the past, a little bit of the present, a little bit of the past, so it switches back and forth. Dual POVs for both of them. I love a dual POV. And in this book, they're not both authors, but they're both like creative people, and so Grace is a musician and Matt is a photographer, and I feel like they in some ways have like an ode to like their lost lover within their creative medium of sorts.
Okay, we have one last pairing that we're going to share in this video. If you have read The Love Wager by Lynn Painter, then you should maybe read Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. So, I feel like a lot of people have seen this book, and I know that people have seen this book around, but like I feel like it really has never gotten its moment, and it's like a very good book. So, we're going to talk about it. So, at the beginning of this book, you meet Hallie. She is working as a bartender at a wedding, and then she kind of starts hitting it off with one of the groomsmen, and they end up hooking up, and then she's like, why don't I do that? And then, so it's like a whirlwind romance to get things all started, and then she's like, I really need to like find my person. Like that kind of like kicks her into gear of like, I want to like, she's just like not happy with where she's at in life, and she wants to see if she can meet someone to
be long-term.
Versus at the beginning of this book, kind of similar thing. So main female character in this book is Sawani. She is an audiobook narrator, and she is in Las Vegas for a convention. She also kind of has a whirlwind romance with someone she meets there, and then, you know, both of them have like their whirlwind romances, and then they leave, and then to supposedly never see that person again. In this book, she is swiping through the dating apps, and she's trying to see if she can find her person, and she comes across the profile of the groomsman, and she messages him, just kind of like saying like, oh, I remember you. Like, she's not really interested in him as a person, because like he low-key just like dumped his girlfriend the day of the wedding, and like she's like, I don't know if I want to be dating you, but she messages him nonetheless, just to kind of like poke fun at like, hey, I know you. So they start talking, and they kind of make it a competition to see who can enter into a relationship first. And in the meantime, like, they're still talking. They'll sometimes go like meet up somewhere after they both have like a date that they go to, and it keeps kind of like not working out. And then maybe slowly but surely. They're kind of like, maybe they've been here all along. In this book, she is getting ready to do another audiobook narration. It's a romance, and this time there is going to be dual POV, and so there's another audiobook narrator. He goes by Brock McKnight, and so they have to start working together on.
And all of these audiobook narrators use aliases for the most part because they don't want people to know who they actually are.
And so you're following their journey as they're working together to create this audiobook.
They're like communicating back and forth via email and like kind of start developing a relationship that way and like poking fun, flirting a little bit.
In terms of similarities between these two books, they both start with a whirlwind romance and then they kind of like go their separate ways. And then during the entire book, they kind of are starting to fall for someone who they have like a working relationship with. This one more literally in the sense that like they're both audiobook narrators working on an audiobook, and this in the sense that they're kind of like acting, they're partners together like as they're going through this journey of trying to like find a long-term relationship.
So those are all of our comparisons that we had for this little video. If you guys have read any of these books and you have your own comparisons that you want to shout out in the comments, or if you read like both the books we compared and you think it was a good comparison, but you have your own points to add, you can also comment that.
I really hope you guys like this video because in my mind, like if I read a book that like I just absolutely love, I want to know where I can read another book like that. If you have any recommendations for Project Hail Mary, like I am searching.
Please.
I'm searching for a book that gives me that same feeling that that book did, and I have not yet found it, so give me a shout.
Anyway, please subscribe if you haven't already for more vlogs, book type videos. Again, we always take recommendations for certain specific book videos you want to see. And I think that's it. We will talk to you guys in our next video. Bye.
Bye.